All right, let's count to 10 and then we'll be ready.
To receive, and Chuck Jones from down in Lowndes County brings it out.
All right, we're good, Les. You can unmute.
I think I had my iPad next to this was causing the problem. Well, Welcome to our meeting. We have a quorum. I believe we have 5 of us. We just found out it's Mike's birthday today, so happy birthday to Mike.
Thank you.
You all should have a updated version of the agenda in front of you.
Enter your access code or meeting number followed by pound.
That's not me. Maybe that's Grant. No? Okay, so before we start to get into the meeting, there's been one item that's going to be removed from the agenda under old business, request for special.
Is not valid or the meeting is not started yet. Re-enter your access code or meeting number followed by pound.
Hey, Robert, can you hear me? Robert, can you hear me? I don't know if you can hear me. He's not muted. And it might be him.
You might be able to mute him, though.
Yeah, you know how to do that. Participant, perhaps?
Yeah, I think you can mute.
Okay.
Enter your attendee ID number followed by pound. If you don't know your attendee number, press pound to continue.
Yeah, I think you can mute him. Ooh, now we lost him. There he is. No, we're good. Okay.
Is that me doing the feedback?
Yeah.
Is everyone muted?
Yeah, I muted all. Can you unmute you, Les? There you go.
Okay.
Okay, I muted everybody, so you can unmute yourself, Les, and then I think it was on Robert Miles's side.
Yeah. Well, welcome everyone. Wanted to just adjust the agenda under old business item E, the airport overlay. Mike heard like about a half hour ago, I think, that they wanted to withdraw the request and table it to a future meeting.
Yeah, next month.
When they do that, that means they're changing the plans, Mike?
They are. They're taking it off the table to redesign some things, and then they'll bring it back to the planning, and then back to us.
Okay, so that.
Or David's subcommittee.
Okay. Good. Why don't we kick off with approval of the August authority minutes? I've read mine already, so I give everyone a few minutes.
And since I have everybody muted, Les, you might want to just get a hand raising for that.
I think do that. That's what they do at the ACC.
Okay.
Can we have a? Well, I'm getting a feedback. Is that mine or? Alrighty. We need a proposal to approve the minutes. Can someone raise their or just unmute and say, okay, Diane's proposing to approve the minutes. Can someone second it? We have 2 seconds. All in favor of approving the minutes, raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4 minutes are approved. Okay, I'm just going to be very brief on the chairman update because we're going to cover most of the stuff I wanted to talk about. Just to say been a very busy month. You're going to see a lot of stuff's gotten done, both administratively, and Mike will update you. If you've been looking up in the sky and listening, you'll see there's been quite a bit of traffic the last few weeks, and Mike will explain why. So Mike will go over the manager's reports. We've dropped the COVID impact. It was essentially being the same every month. So unless you or Josh, and I don't think Josh is on yet, but
Not quite yet.
unless you have something that you want to add to it, feel free to do it. Old business, we've got a few items to approve, including the strategic plan update and the overlay, the amendments to the bylaws. So we'll have a formal vote on both those items. Then we have some new business. We have the new performance measures results, no new reports, but the new results. Diane and Keith have taken over tracking the strategic plan, so they'll go over the strategic plan status. Grant and I had a brief chat last week about what we could be doing next steps wise relative to air service development. We just want to present some ideas, let you noodle it over. Definitely get with Mike to get his input, and we'll come back to you next month with some more formal recommendations. And then Diane has a lot of good news about the trail and micro park, which is the strategic goal for. So any questions about the agenda before, or anyone want to add an item? No show of hands. So I'm going to mute Mike and turn it over to you to
Okay.
monthly report.
All right. Thank you, Les. See if I can find it. I think this is it here. Okay, so here we're looking at our financials. We had a very good month in August. And that's when I think toward the end, very close toward the end, is when Gwinnett shut down and we started getting some of their business. And the two players that are here right now that have been beneficial to us, especially this month in September, are Quest Diagnostics and Midway. So both of them have been extremely busy and really kicked up our operations, our traffic count, as well as our fuel sales. So looking at August, the actual, we have 150,137 in revenue. The leases, of course, the T hangars and the corporate. The fuel sales has been fantastic, 85,000 in jet, 22,000 in avgas. Coming down to our expenses, you see our total expenses for August 131,837. We did buy a load of avgas toward the end of the month, so that's why it's pretty close to what our revenue is, but we'll be using that this month. Have been using that this month. So that brings our total revenue to 18,000 for the month. And coming over here to the right, year to date is 25,000. So we're 2 months into our fiscal year, 17% of the year completed, and I think we're doing well. Thankfully, again, and it's a win-win for us, and it's a win-win for Gwinnett. Gwinnett's getting a brand new runway, and we've got to use some of the get some good revenue in our pocket. Coming down to the other information, I've kind of made this a little bit different from what it has been in the past. Usually, what I've had is just 1 month shown, and then I kind of report on the months, how they relate to the past months. But I figured, it'd be nice to kind of show the whole month as we go through it. And if you guys want to see, and gals, if you want to see previous years, just let me know. I'll be glad to send you that information as well. But at least this way, as we go through the year, we can kind of see, where avgas falls through the months in gallons, and this is gallons. And also Jet A gallons as well. And you can kind of see as the effects of COVID, hopefully, business gets back to normal, starts getting back to normal. Hopefully we'll see increases in our gallons. Also, I was hoping for operations, and we had quite a few good operations in July. And August wasn't so high as July. I'm not quite sure why, but I'm going to talk to the tower and see what might have happened. I can't remember what the deal was. If August was a wet month, I'm not quite sure. But and you know, of course, corporate sometimes they don't fly as much normally as they would some months. So, but anyway, so I wanted to do that, and going forward, I think we'll have a good idea as you know what the trends are, especially as I say with COVID. Any questions on the financials?
Yeah, Mike, if we could just go up a little
Uh-huh.
more for Grant and Keith, but I think you can see we pretty much just we're on the other side of breaking even, the good side, by about my memory serves me 18 thou, and you can see yet we've had a big shortfall on the revenue side, and this shows you just if we were even anywhere near back to normal, how much we are so dependent on fuel. Almost every future dollar of fuel really just falls right to the bottom line, the gross margin. So the fact Mike's been able to keep expenses under control, we are, you know, once operations get back, we would be really minting money. But the bottom line is we're not really suffering too badly from COVID-19 financially.
Yeah. So far, so good. Now, under airport fees, under the revenue, that's our landing fee, that's our handling fees, you know, baggage, ramp fees. So starting this weekend, we have Delta coming in to pick up UGA, and we do charge Delta and have always charged Delta, you know, for the landing fees and the parking, the ramp fees, and the handling fees, and you know, we have air stairs that we use, and that's a fee. So hopefully this month we'll see the airport fees go up as well, and that's really what helped us last year, and a lot of the authority members on the board now remember that from last year that really kicked up high. We increased the fees there, and it was to our benefit, of course. And then of course when COVID hit, all the charters stopped, and so did our airport fees pretty much. So I'm hoping that will start up again, and it's not going to be like it would normally be because you know, stadium's not going to be full. We don't know what to expect as far as what kind of traffic we're going to get from the fans, and we usually charge a ramp fee for the Jets on that as well. So, you know, it's a different year, so we'll just have to see how that goes. Yeah, and when we find out about basketball, that'll definitely help because basketball was um, a big part of our revenue fees. Fuel, a lot of them bought fuel too, and also the ramp fees and landing fees too.
Mike,
Uh-huh.
you mentioned Quest and Medway. Are they
Right.
new customers or are they?
Those are the companies that came from Gwinnett, and they're only here probably another month or
Okay.
two, maybe. Yeah.
They are my guess. Quest is a lab that they're probably
So they're,
testing, and so
Mhm.
it's probably been created by all the COVID tests. So
That's a big part of their business right now.
okay, thanks.
Any questions? All right, I'll get that off of here. Let's see. Stop sharing. All right, and as far as the capital improvement projects, we Jacob and GDOT and I been working toward those. We've got, of course, the localizer project that is moving forward. We haven't started, of course, and we probably won't start these projects until March. And the reason for that is because we were one of the last months that was that the grant was announced. And so with that, we decided to kind of hold off because we've got the winter months coming up, And then we've also got a lead time, unfortunately, on our localizer equipment of 6 months. So, and then UGA, we're very conscious of UGA, utilizing the airport. So with all those factors involved, February, March looked like a good time to start the project. And I don't know if Jacob has anything he wants to add, but with that, we will probably get everything and have everything in order and ready to go by that time. So we're excited about it. It's going to be a project that is definitely needed, localizer especially, and most definitely Alpha. We need to get that done. And then this project is only going to be the west side of Alpha, not the middle or the east side. And but that I've been told, you never know until you have the money in hand, but I've been told that is something that we can work toward next year and try to get a grant for. So that's good. But we can get the whole thing done. It would be fantastic. And just looking at the ramp today, with all the airplanes on there, it gets kind of tight because our ramp is very close to our taxiway in front of the terminal. So if we can do the other half of Alpha, that would actually give us a parallel taxiway and extend our ramp area out, so it wouldn't be so dangerous. So we're excited about that. Any questions on the capital improvements? As far as marketing and outreach, I haven't done a whole lot of outreach, but as far as marketing, we do have an intern, but that's going to be under old business, so I'll discuss that at that time.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Any questions for Mike? Nope. Okay. Then the first item of old business was to approve the strategic plan update from last month. Let me just, I'm not going to go over it again because that'll take 2 hours. I made that mistake last time. Let me share it with you. First, let me find it. All right. I'd like to break the process into two, and I can't see everyone, so I may need some help here. First thing I'd like to ask is for a proposal to approve just the two new goals. We updated two goals. One was the infrastructure goal, and that was to take what was pretty vague type of strategies and turn them into very specific infrastructure strategies. And the second was to take our general aviation. One of the strategies was just really an outcome, and we replaced that with a customer satisfaction strategy. So it'd be nice if we could get, before we have a proposal, any questions on these before we vote on the updated goals? I can't see because I'm sharing the screen, so, okay. Can we have a motion to approve the updated goals for the FY 20?
I'll move.
A second?
Second.
Okay, a show of hands, how many people in favor? I can't see, so Diana, you were approving or, okay, so I see 5, okay. So we've approved replacing the old goal 1 and 2, 1 and 3 with new goals 1 and 3. The second thing we did, and everyone's had a chance hopefully to review all these, we just came up with the series of initiatives. This would be an example. These are items that we are going to focus on specifically in FY 2021, starting in past July, going through June. Any questions on any of the initiatives before we vote to accept them? Don't see any hands. So can we have a proposal to approve the FY 2021 strategic initiatives? Grant, okay. Diane, second. Diane, okay. So Grant proposed, Diane seconded. show of hands and approving the initiatives. Okay, we have 5, so we have approved the update to the strategic plan. Thank you. And as Diane will explain later, she and Keith are going to be monitoring progress. That'll be from a task viewpoint. And then we also have strategic outcomes, which are quantitative measures of most of the strategies, and we'll be looking at that each month. So, well, thank you. I'm going to stop sharing if I. Share content. I can't stop sharing. Here we go. All righty. I'm going to turn it over to Mike to give you a little update on our UGA intern, and he can tell you about the person for Keith and Grant who haven't met her, and what Mike, Angela, and the intern are working on.
Thank you. I met with Sarah. Her name is Sarah Gardner. She's a UGA student. Smart as a whip. I mean, Les and I met with her. She helped us with our annual report last fiscal year, and we felt that she'd be an asset to us. We brought her on because there's several things we want to do here. Special projects, but mostly it's one thing I really want to get out is a newsletter, and so we decided that it'd be good to put her on that, as well as helping Angela with the website and Facebook. And she'll be working close with Angela. I did meet with her I think it was last week, just to kind of get an idea of what ideas she had, and then tell her the ideas I had. And we've come up with that. We also want her to help us with this year's annual report as well. So she'll be working with Angela probably in the next week. I got to get with Angela on that, and along with Sarah, and we'll just get together, the 3 of us, and hash out some good ideas. But she is an intern. She is an intern with Athens-Clarke County now, so she is getting paid through us, and she's excited to be here. We're excited to have her.
One thing dear to me, Mike and I have talked about too. She's going to start spiffing up the website and social media. So
yeah, right. Facebook and the website. Working with Angela on that.
Yeah. She's from the Grady School, and money and need. We've got a good relationship now with the director of experiential learning there. So this could be an ongoing pipeline every year where we have a top-notch student. And so those of you who've seen her work last year, I think she's really been terrific. So. Any questions for Mike about Sarah? Okay, moving on. Diane, do you want to tell us about the Lexington Corridor?
Okay. Unmute. All right. I'll keep it as focused as I can. I know that last time when I wasn't with you, Mike gave you a brief update that he's given them the list of 19 locations for wayfinding signs. And so, that remains a concrete achievement, really, because they've moved forward now into the pipeline to be scheduled for installation. So, Mike, actually, Derek Doster suggested you give them a gentle nudge and find out, where they are on the worksheet.
I have an update for you when you're ready, when you're finished. I'll update.
Okay. So, that's the one thing that on this committee, is a definite positive, because it was immediately approved for funding without having to go through the whole long rigmarole in the budget request to the mayor and commission. That deadline date for the work of this committee in this phase has been pushed to December the 3rd now, rather than October, to send the proposal for the budget to the mayor and commissioner on December the 3rd. That's to fund the priority project, T-Splost money. From October is, you can probably sum it up in one statement: negotiations with GDOT continue. Apparently, in the traffic frequency count studies that GDOT did, they found an error because they'd actually rejected the request to approve a traffic light at Jail Farm Road, or where that major intersection is. And then they admitted, apparently, Derek Doster reported that they found an error in their calculations. So there's something of a delay because there's more than one traffic safety study that's underway, and we have to wait for those results. A couple of interesting things always come out in these meetings that I find very interesting. There's a pedestrian safety issue that's risen to the fore. You know, the intersection where if you go to the police station or you go to the tag office or the recycling bins, that's Jail Farm Road. Apparently there are 60 to 70 people who come and try to cross Lexington on foot every morning about 7 a.m. They walk up from the diversion center, and if they're released for work, they cross the road to catch the bus to go outbound. So they must have work, you know, like where Walmart is or Goodwill or somewhere. So there's a distinct danger for 60 to 70 people. And then also they said for people who are released from the jail, they don't have someone picking them up and they want to cross that road. But the thing is that GDOT doesn't count pedestrians in their frequency counts to authorize or advocate for a traffic light. So the pedestrian data have to come in sort of from the side, you know. But anyway, that's an interesting thing because basically, you know, the focus is on trying to get GDOT to warrant first and then authorize a traffic light at that intersection because it is very dangerous. If you've ever tried to get out there and turn left to go to Lowe's, you know, it's dangerous, you know. So, and then actually I had actually mapped the areas along the whole corridor where there were sections of sidewalk and where there were no sections of sidewalk, etc. And now the design team in ACC is actually doing a formal map with layers of priority for the whole corridor using that map and other data, because we're still looking at sidewalk sections to put in our priority projects for recommended funding. The Cherokee Road, you know, the road from Lexington to the Buddy Christian turnoff, that stretch, which is Cherokee, has been authorized for a multi-use trail. So that's already underway and that's been funded. And I guess it may not be anything new to some, but it is, you know, to others. And that is really what's being emphasized is a sort of network approach and an incremental approach, that trying to get a whole project funded is just not going to work. The funds are too tight. And so, you know, we're looking at trying to actually leverage funding with GDOT and with ACC funds through SPLOST or T-SPLOST in this case. And then also take a sort of a network approach. But we were really reminded of the fact that, you know, unless it's locally funded, you're tied to GDOT's regulations and they're tied to federal regulations. So there's a lot of negotiation going on, and the next step is to actually meet again with GDOT to talk about the actual warranting of a traffic light at that dangerous intersection and then some of the other sidewalks. So it's a little bit slower than, you know, one had hoped, but I think increasingly one's reminded of the levels of power and authority and funding that are just a constant negotiation before you can really see some concrete progress. So, Mike, you said you've got an update on the signage?
I do. I've been in communication today with traffic engineering and then Derek as well. And the sign and marketing engineer likes the locations that I proposed for the airport signs. And so he had gotten 3 quotes along with posts. And they're very good. They're very good numbers. So I sent it on to Derek, find out where we needed to go from there. He's turned it over to his people, and it's going to order them. And then once we get them, they're going to go to the sign and marketing engineer, and then he and I will probably go out and determine where we want these signs. I mean, I just kind of pegged them, you know, on this map. So we'll go out and kind of see where they will go. And then they said, next thing is we'll just put them up. So it's moving along pretty well.
Well, the thing that which was interesting is, you know, that if some people have questioned why the wayfinding signage is justified, but he said, a secondary reason aside from the need for the airport is that if they can move people off the corridor quickly and safely instead of having them get lost on dead ends and things, it actually helps the traffic situation on Lexington Road, So for
most
Grant,
definitely.
Grant, I haven't met you yet, but hi. For Grant and Keith, it was a positive step in the right direction. That the one thing we got in this project was to have the airport wayfinding signage designated for immediate implementation and funding rather than having to wait. So I think it's a modest thing, but it's a nice achievement. Mike, did they talk to you about the logo sign, or are they just going to put up the standard green sign at this point?
Just the green sign right now. There's room for the logo sign, but I know Josh has said that we're working, in the future on that. So there's no need to really put anything up that we have right now, until we get that done later. So there'll be room for it, and we put it right up, at a later date.
Yeah. So just the last point, those of us that are on the committee, we have all actually taken the list of projects that I've shared with you, and we've given them, or we've submitted our priority requests or suggestions. And then that will all be, those priority suggestions will be distilled into the final list of recommended priorities that will be submitted on December 3rd. So we're still sort of waiting to hear the results of, these studies and things, but gradually it's inching forward, and the multi-use trail remains on that list of potential priority projects, the one that could go the whole way around the airport. So we'll see what happens. So thank you, Les.
You're on mute, Les. You're on mute, Les.
Yeah. Next item up was the bylaws, and Diana and I have exchanged emails, and I hope I represent how we decided to do. We want to do it sort of the way we did the strategic plan. Diane sent a month ago the suggested amendments, and you've also had a later copy a day or two ago. It's the same material from last month. But what we initiated this used to be every June we would take a look at this. And back in June, we identified with Diane some items that could use improvement. And the most immediate one, which I suggest we vote on first, will be the change to the document in terms of allowing online meetings.
Do you want to share the document, or you want to just speak to it?
I can pull it up.
Mike has it.
I've got it.
While he's doing that, the second thing we'll talk about, the second fix Diane made, was a lot of typographical things, like referring to the roles and responsibilities more predominantly. So that'll be the second item we look at. We can briefly discuss the committees, but we're not going to vote on it. And then there's a fourth item which we want to table to spend 3 hours on that one. So the first order of business would be to look at, once Mike gets it up, rewording the meetings, which will allow us to be in conformance with the rest of the county and permit us to use online meetings. So, Mike, you're going to share it? Good.
Yeah, Angela had a good insight, though. We need to vote on the whole document, not just portions of it.
Well, we're not accepting. No, we are.
Let me see if I can pull this up real quick.
We're going to vote on the changes, and this is what we wanted to break it into two pieces. So,
all right, that's not the right one, but we're getting close.
Yeah. We're voting on an amendment to essentially an amendment to the bylaws, which I do not believe requires and Diane has requested that the only other thing would be to vote on all the typographical changes. So we're not reapproving the entire bylaws, just the changes.
Okay. There.
That's not it.
No, I've got two of them here, but I don't know how to get to the other one. Let's see. Yeah.
I've got it. I don't know if you can let me share. I've got it in my.
Yeah, if you have it, you can share.
What do
Yeah.
I have to do? Just hit share and then click on it?
Just hit share and then click on it.
Box with an arrow coming out of it, share content.
Yeah.
Got
And
so
that'll
many.
be-
Hold on.
I probably have it too if you're struggling.
That's not it. Oh, hell, I think I've lost you now. That was really good. No, there you
Now
are.
you can go to the top. When you go to the top, you'll have a kind of a down bar, and then you can stop sharing.
Okay, I've lost all of you.
Yeah,
you
you
will.
will. You'll,
Oh, okay. But all right, I'm lost. All I can see is faces, but I don't know how to get.
stop sharing and I'll try and find it.
I'm meaning I've lost the whole screen though.
Hmm.
Mike may be able to stop you from sharing. He may be.
Yeah, let's
I have to
see.
do that. I'm trying to drag you all back to be visible. And I don't know if you, I think you'll have to do it, Mike.
Okay.
I think since everybody's got it, Les,
Yeah, I can.
we don't necessarily have to. I mean, the main impetus for updating or revising the bylaws was that provision for removing the prohibition on teleconference meetings. And you and I and Mike got that vetted with the attorney's office, and we agreed. And that's the concrete update, and then all the smoothing of the text.
Yeah, Diana, I can just read the change. It's very.
Yeah. And I've left the original wording in, which we can easily take out. It's only in there for everybody's reference.
So what Diane is proposing, which I think Mike and we all have agreed with, is to replace the following language in Article 5, Section 1. Everyone should have a copy. The current language says telephone conference call meetings are prohibited, except as may be permitted under the Georgia Open Meetings Act. Diane has rewritten it very concisely to say the following. All meetings will be held in compliance with the Georgia Open Meeting Law and in compliance with prevailing ACC Gov policies and procedures governing public meetings, which does permit online meetings. So it's swapping out the prohibition against conference calls, saying essentially we're going to follow the open governance and ACC Gov policies.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you want to say more about it before we maybe get a motion to approve it?
No, I mean, obviously, if we get it approved, then we can take out the original wording and then it's clean. But that one is sort of intact and, concrete. I didn't highlight, and I don't think we need to go through them letter by letter, word for word, all of the corrections. But as Les says, those were things that were some of them were sort of anachronistic, where we needed to just update the reference to the mayor and commission or commissioners or make the word usage consistent. There were places where the word chairman was used and other places where just the word chair was used. So I smoothed over and made consistent all those sorts of things. So, housekeeping. There were typos and spelling errors. Les owes me $2. That's a private joke. He told me every time I find one of his typos, he'll pay me $1. But that's just standard stuff. So, and then I think, like Les says, the other questions that you will see in the document highlighted under Article 1 and Article 2 and 3, I think we can leave those for the next round because I think they can, demand some further investigation or thought. I think we can vote on the ones that are concrete and clear now.
So we need a proposal to accept the First Amendment to Section 5, Article 5, Section 1, replacing the language we talked about, the telephone conference call language with the new wording that says all meetings will be held in compliance with ACC Gov policies and the Georgia Open Meetings. So that's an amendment. We will strike some language and add the new language.
Hey,
So,
Wes, why don't
yes.
we make the changes at this meeting here and then come back next month with a clean version to vote on just a whole new clean version?
Okay.
Would that help? And make it not so,
If that makes it easier for you all, sure.
okay.
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 And that
So-
way, we
so
don't have to
what we'll
vote on
do
each
is-
one. We can you just talk about the changes. If everybody's okay with it, then we'll have a clean version, bring it back next month, and it'll all be just one clean version to vote on.
Okay.
Yeah. We just need to make sure that we're not going back and reopening the other 9 things that never got changed. That's
Right.
so. So we decided to table this till the next meeting. Diane will update this.
Well, but still talk about the changes so everybody knows what they are. And that way, everybody be aware of those changes this time. And we'll just make those simple changes here and everybody be aware of it. Next month, it'll just be easy just to vote on it as it was discussed at this meeting.
Okay. Well, she talked about the two, and there's one that on the committees, which we can talk about now. And then there's a fourth item, which we were going to probably don't want to talk about till a separate meeting. And we couldn't make a decision on that anyway without additional input. So,
Right.
Yeah, so
I
we'll
can
just
raise-
talk.
the third
Go ahead.
issue, I'd be happy to introduce that. Diane noted that we don't mention, and forgive me, standing committees, Article 4, Section 2. We do not mention what committees we have, and we left it open that each year the chairman could say which committees we'd have, the authority would approve it, and we would staff them. And that was a very conscious decision to do that. We actually, David Fluck, Robert Hiss, and I started on this, then Mike finished it up, and we actually had that in one of our drafts, and we actually decided to consciously remove it because it robbed flexibility. And also, to be honest, the committees added a layer of bureaucracy because if you really ran formal committee meetings, you have to have minutes, all these other rules. So really, we've been functioning like just the people have taken certain topics of interest. So the thinking back then was to just leave committees up in the air and keep it flexible so we didn't have to go through a 2-month process to make amendments if we wanted to change a committee. So that's just the history. So I leave it to y'all to decide if you feel it'd be better to have the specific names. Any comments or?
Am I muted or not? I've lost my function.
No, you're not.
No, you're not.
Oh. I don't think it really matters to me. I think the only reason I put it in there was to raise the question because in the letter that Blaine Williams wrote, the January 3 letter, what was it, 2018, that he wrote to you and to the authority, he mentioned those committees had actually been approved by the mayor and commission. So I wasn't sure whether if we had other committees, they would need to be approved by the mayor and commission, or whether they were internal. And if that's not an issue for everybody, then it's just a question that was raised or a moot point.
Yeah, that was written, that happened before the new bylaws, but I was not here when we did the committees. It was a few months before David and I started.
Mm-hmm.
We started in 17, and I think that was in April or a little earlier, but the final approval of the authority was in April. So I was not aware that I've seen nothing in the enabling legislation that says the mayor commission have to approve any committees we have. So
that's one of those layers where if they've taken on that role, it's not in the enabling legislation. So it's not important, really. It's just, we just want to make it sure if it needs to be mentioned, it can go in. If it doesn't have to go in. The other one is the roles and responsibilities document. You might remember that Les actually attached that document to the bylaws document because it sort of goes with them. And we referred to it. So it's just a little question again, whether we want to make that like an appendix or an addendum to the bylaws document, whether they are housed or shown. And
Yeah,
that could be a small decision.
I think that's a good change, Diane. And also, last time we voted on both documents, so that actually has been formally approved. So I think
Yeah.
members like yourself, it's not obvious that that document exists. So making it just one sheet of paper, and that's actually the most critical part of these bylaws. It's where we laboriously went over about 40 different tasks, like who does a budget, who creates projects, who develops a strategic plan, and we hammered out all the different roles and responsibilities. So that's actually a really critical piece of the document. So,
Well, right now that's under Article 1, and so you might want to leave that in and have us vote on that one as well then next month.
well, I think what I'm hearing Mike say is let's incorporate all your changes.
Mm-hmm.
Correct me, Mike, into the document.
Mm-hmm.
Don't take out the old language, and maybe just italicize or bold the new language, and we'll vote on the whole document.
Yeah, send it out to everybody, make sure everybody's good with it. Then everybody be prepared and you know, and be familiar with it. Then next month it'll just be easy vote.
Yeah, okay, that makes it cleaner. Yeah.
And then the one thing I would interject here is I think we need to make sure the county attorney's office has a chance to look at it in its totality as well in between.
Okay.
So I would just ask that y'all forward it on to Attorney Judd Drake and his team and allow them to review it in advance.
Okay. So
Okay.
probably, I don't mean to put words in her mouth, but she's probably almost, it's more a typing exercise right now. So it shouldn't take long to get.
No, I can do that in the next couple of days because I'm sure Judd's office will need some time.
Almost definitely, they're very busy.
Yeah. Okay, I think that makes it a clearer task.
Thank you, Diane.
Okay.
Moving on, I was going to go over the performance measure results, but it doesn't appear, I'm going to try and share, but I've never gotten my screen totally looking like normal, but I'll try it here.
One option, if I may put my IT hat on, is
please.
if Diane, if you're able to sign off and sign back on, it might clear up what we're dealing with here. Because it says it's still Diane's screen that's showing.
Yeah.
So I just ask you to sign off the WebEx for a second and sign back on.
I'm not seeing anywhere how to sign off is the problem.
Down the bottom, do you see the red X?
Big X at the
All
bottom.
of those functions have gone. So
Yeah, really?
Move your mouse back
That's
and
strange.
forth.
So Mike, since you're host, you might be able to click on Diane and you might have some options.
get rid of
Yeah, I've got start private chat. I can lock this thumbnail video or mute her.
Okay, well, that's not going to help us. All right, y'all.
No.
Well, that's why I'm not an IT professional. Sorry.
I've actually out. Can you still hear me? Oh hell, you're still down.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Well, let me see if I can take over the screen. I'll just try one thing.
Okay, try that.
That bounces her.
If not, plan B, Diane, you're going to have to shut down your computer.
Diane,
So
Yeah.
hey, I've got it. Diane will stop sharing as soon as I start. Here we go.
Okay. Well, there you go then.
Wow.
Very good.
All right, bravo.
We learn something every day.
Yeah.
Dave should be impressed with my IT skills.
Saved.
Yeah, this is fun.
So, quick update on the performance measures. These are the standard reports that we developed the measures starting back in January. It's a moving target as we get better. Mike and Angela are loading these measures into the new ClearPoint system that the county's rolling out. Josh has been a real leader behind that. But until that is truly functioning, I chatted with Mike that I'd produce the reports until we have the output from ClearPoint ready to go. So these are the next layer behind the financial statements that Mike prepares. And essentially, we have strategic measures, and I'm not going to beat these to death. Pretty much one for one, every strategy we've tried to come up with a strategic measure. So you'd see like increased non-scheduled employments. Those are the charters by 50%. The outcome was to get to 4,800, and the goal was to do it. I have it in another chart, but it was to do it by 2021 or 22. So as Mike pointed out, this month we were at 0, and year to date we're at 0. This is truly because of COVID. If any one number has been impacted more than any, it's this. So for all these strategic measures, you will see green indicates that we are beating our current month projection or year-to-date projection. Yellow, we're within 10% on the negative end, and red, we're more than 10% off. So classic red, yellow, green. And you can see us, you would see on another chart that many of these need to be implemented beginning in the end of the first or start of the second quarter. This would be the one last pass at the tenant and customer surveys, for instance. So we have a few measures that we have to get going, like publish the annual report. We haven't published one yet. So we have to set some targets for some of these and start implementing them. I'll produce a list after this meeting for Mike, and hopefully Keith and the finance and planning group can get it implemented. I'll copy you, Josh. And but it's a good snapshot of where we're at. You can see some of these in the middle, mostly the community engagement. This is where we need some measures still. And one of these, Josh, and I'll bug you again on the perception score when the right time is, when you get a few minutes. So
Yep, and we can talk about that. We still haven't decided when we're going to do the survey, but that's a function of when we're able to pull that off and when we roll it out. So
I think there's a few more things important going on. But you can see so the stuff in the middle was all our community engagement. That's the ones that until we roll these out, we can't measure something we're not doing yet, so or not formally doing. But the last two, and this got cut off in the print, was becoming revenue neutral, and I do want to focus on that. That when Mike and Bain developed the reports, we stopped at what would be a more traditional business report. It doesn't include some non-controllable things like depreciation, and there's one other item I forget. So when your bottom line, you saw revenue minus expenses, it was $18,000. The county then, in fund accounting terms, takes it a level down and says, what's the change in the enterprise fund? And we have a measure for us to be self-sufficient. That amount of money we would need from the county to have a zero change, and that change would be zero. To have a zero change, forgive me, it sounds like double talk, but we needed $6,200 year to date from the county to sort of be break even. And that number is phenomenal given where we're at with COVID. So my guess is that'll be close. We'll be almost self-sufficient again next month when we see Mike's great numbers on the avgas. So when we say we're self-sufficient, this is the key measure. But the thing that's going to drive us being self-sufficient, it's a secondary strategic measure. It's by increasing our operating revenue year over year. And here again, the goal was to do, we have to set a target, but I think we had talked about this year, the target was to do 6%, but I think the strategic goal was more like 20%. We're going to have to hammer that out, but you can see we're 13% behind where we were last year. So the idea would be to do these measures as part of Mike's managerial report. They'll come out of ClearPoint, but they'll give us a good idea of how we're doing quantitatively against each of the strategies. And then I think, Grant, you and Keith might use this in the industry too. We have a second layer of measures. These are called more forward measures or operational measures. They give us a predictor if the strategic measures are going to be good. And the best examples, since all our revenue comes 80% of it from fuel, you can see if we're not meeting our budget on avgas or jet fuel, we're going to probably have a hard time making our revenue numbers. So you can see we're in the red month to date and year to date on those. the hangars leased, and most of these measures we've been implementing. Key ones like quality of the pavement. Did we pass our FAA test? We passed that in July. The other number we really want to manage is the gross margin. So we could be selling a ton of gas, but if we're giving it away, and we've talked about this many times, Mike's going to work on this. It's to get our cost of goods sold to match the revenue. The inventory accounting method is sort of like on a cash basis, and everything else we're doing on accrual. So these are the operational measures. Again, the marketing and community engagement needs to be implemented as we roll out the strategy. So hopefully you'll find these useful, and hopefully ClearPoint will be able to output most of these. So any questions on the measures? Okay. So that's one way we want to, let me stop sharing. I know how to do that. Stop sharing. Back to normal. And the next was to do the strategic plan status, and then I'll turn it over to Diane and Keith. They're going to be meeting with Mike each month to go over each initiative and just see, where we're at, which ones maybe we've hit a brick wall, which ones we finished, which ones we should reschedule. So I'm afraid to, Mike, hopefully you have that. I was going to say, Diane.
Mike, can you put up that diagram? I wouldn't dream of trying to share it. May send me off into outer space.
Which diagram is this, Diane? That one. That was the easy one.
Yeah.
That's the one I can get. Okay, here we go with that one. There we go. All right.
Okay. I'll try and keep this brief, but as you all know, this is the first time that Keith and I will be presenting or reporting. So, we're looking at one's way of thinking about the task overall at the outset of our tenure or responsibility to do it. So just for purposes of showing you my sort of line of thinking right now, if you look at the diagram, what one's talking about is the strategic plan in the left-hand big blue box per se that one is updating yearly or, whatever the time period is. And then the tracker, the next big rectangle is the actual spreadsheet document that we'll speak to in a minute. In an outcomes-based system like this, as one knows, many of the departments and divisions in ACC have done a SWOT analysis, and the airport SWOT analysis was done in, I think, 2018, 17-18, and appeared with the strategic plan, the 2018 version. And ultimately, as we move forward, the SWOT analysis can be updated, which is standard procedure. Right now, what we're looking at, is the next thing I'll ask Mike to share is the tracker document that Les turned over to me and to Keith, and we'll speak to that. But I also just want to point out, I'm looking at this as the entire task in long term as well, and that is, as we update our strategic plan, obviously we're also looking at things like the comprehensive development plan, the Envision Athens and other plans in the unified government, as well as the strategic commitments of the Mayor and Commission and how the airport and its plans and its operations and everything relate to those system-wide plans. So updates I'm looking for as well as corrections and clarifications. So Mike, if you can share the tracker document.
All right, let me get out of this one.
And I've already sent this out to all of you, and I shared it also with Keith, and we spoke yesterday.
See if this is the one you're talking about, Diane. Is that the one?
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. What I've done with this is I've highlighted only the sections that I'll speak to briefly in this initial report. Looking at it, also trying to digest it and see about the path forward. What I've done, and I met with Mike and talked, and then Keith and I also talked, was to take the existing text and entries in the spreadsheet, and then focused on just some of them for purposes of clarification or some updates and additions. So what you're looking at, I mean, if you can scroll up just a wee bit, Mike.
Okay.
Goal 1, focusing on upgrading or enhancing the infrastructure. I highlighted all of those because basically what I did, and you can see in the right-hand column, we had put in a comments column into this document, or Les had some time ago. And I feel it's useful in a document like this to add clarifications for those of us that might not be fully conversant with all these details. So what I did with Mike's help was actually put in the relationships among funding pots of money, if you like, for each of the initiatives, which is interesting in itself. It reminds me of the Lexington Road project, where everything is you sort of leveraged or negotiated or, joint funding. But then some of them are separate funding or just local, like the one about the transient hangar. So there were no real updates in this. What I've just done in this set for goal 1 is to add some clarifications. And there were a couple of typos, and I fixed those. So for this month, the update in this goal 1 is just some of the clarifications, which help me understand, the challenges that Mike and the airport face constantly about where the funding is coming from for each of these projects. Okay, if you can move down, Mike, to goal 2, right. You'll only see selected ones of these. Here I had put in the comments column the SCASDAP grant. And Mike, you said you were going to check whether it was 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, and I apologize, I didn't do it. I believe it is. I believe it is 4. I believe it's 4.
Because there wasn't anywhere else in the document to put that, and yet it was actually an important update. I mean, it was a big thing when we got that grant. So put that in. I think that's what the comments column can be useful for. Everything else on there is the same. If you scroll down a bit more, Mike, to the next highlighted section. Under goal 3, you've got the RFI for a destination restaurant. And again, we had a target date in the left-hand column for December 2023 for the initiative as a whole to enhance facilities, products and services. And then I just added another comment to the existing comment on the right-hand side where Les had noted, depending on the COVID-19 impact, etc., and that the proposed venue there is the new terminal building events room. So personally don't think it's redundant to put some of these comments in. I think this kind of document is a tracker to update things, but also it can be a teaching tool or a reminder, of some of the details. Okay, next one down, Mike, please. Goal 4, a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Bit more.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. This is where last month, Les had asked me to put in a lot of these others, 4, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, all of these sort of public events and community engagement type of initiatives and strategies. And so we put all of those in, and you can see they're listed there. And like Les said, those are things that are new. We've started the planning and thinking and talking about them right now. Many of them are on hold until this COVID-19 shutdown is lifted altogether. 427, though, is already underway, and I'll talk about that next when I give you an update on the little park. I put in the comments column there, the funding issue is interesting because the funding may be partial and incremental, and I'll explain that when I give you the park update. But it falls within our strategic plan, so it's not just something that's on a whim. It's actually in the strategic plan already. And so, we can update like that. So every month, I think, Keith and I'll be working on these. We'll be consulting with Mike and with Les. And if and as something is actually needing update or there's a development or a change, we'll put them in. And there might be some things, like Les said, that hit a wall that we have to say, well, that's the end of that one. So we can note that. So, Okay, a little further down, you'll see 4.3 where the intern is mentioned, and I added the update there since she now has been formally taken on as an employee by ACC. So Sarah's in there. And I used Mike's suggested word ongoing rather than putting a date there because the target date for that one had already gone past. And, you know, if there were funds, there may be more than one intern. So I think ongoing is a good word to use there. It's something we'll be tracking ongoing. Okay, Mike. And I think that's it really. So for now, as I said, this is my first, or Keith's and my first consideration of how to update the tracker. And I think from now on, this is the sort of approach we'll take. You know, if there are other things that come to fruition or need to go on here, I know, you know, you'll let us know, or we will know about it to add it, you know, for other committees and so on. So, Les, that's it for that one for now. It's never finished. It's going to be ongoing.
Well, thank you, Diane. It looks like it's in you and Keith are good hands for this. So, and again, some of this this tracker may go away. Well, I don't. When we learn more about ClearPoint,
Yeah.
not it goes down to the initiatives level. It may stop with strategies, but we'll all learn as this progresses. I'm going to take over and talk about the air passenger service. And if you will remember, Diane actually showed one of the initiatives was to start looking into, not to do them, but to just get smarter about alternatives to network carriers. So I just have 3 quick handout pages. Share. Okay, so I just thought, and I'll be quick.
Okay.
All righty, everyone see the, I want to just give one little bit of background, mostly for Keith and Grant. We had a very rigorous process to do our service development. One of the first things we did was a market analysis of the number of passengers. We put out an RFP and employed Meet and Hunt, who pretty much are the leading firm doing this. And this was the step prior to applying for the SCASDEP. But the documents are out there, their study, but you can read the SCASDEP and you'll get all the flavor of it. But essentially, their recommendation boiled down to we should be pursuing a hub with American Airlines at Charlotte. They have 148 nonstop markets. Essentially, it would let Athens get access to the national and international air service networks. They recommended our top priority. They recommended, if that was not a go, a good fallback would be to use United to go to Dulles, and there we could tap into 95 nonstop markets. Personally, I think that would prevent, though, I don't think anyone would fly to Dulles to go to Miami. So that doesn't appear as attractive as Charlotte. Our SCASDEP, the strategy was to fly to Charlotte. Americans submitted a commitment letter. These are sort of semi-commitment. The commitment is that they'll talk seriously with us if we win the SCASDEP. So that's the point we're at. I can't remember how many winners there were. There were probably 25 or so SCASDEP award grant winners. So
I think there was 18 or something.
18.
Somehow 18 comes to mind.
I think you're right, Micah, at 18. The 50 number was the number of applicants, but so you had 18 winners, you probably had 18 the year before. And so we're starting to build up a queue of people, probably at least 30 airports that have money right now to try and attract an airline. And as you all know, this is not the best time to try and get a legacy carrier. So the last section of the report listed some alternatives. And this is sort of a personal feeling, and I think Grant and Mike and I've indirectly talked with Mike and Grant is we shouldn't stop pursuing this, but let's start getting smarter about alternatives due to COVID-19. So we probably wouldn't be doing this if COVID hadn't occurred. So I just listed what some of the alternatives are. and they're not, some are more attractive than others. But the first two, this one and this one, essentially say, let's continue to try to get to Charlotte or Dulles. And when Mike and I talked to, I can't remember the gentleman's name from Allentown, he had what I thought was a very interesting idea, was to take our SCASDEP money and see if the EAS carriers, and I think that we talked to Keith and Grant, EAS is another form of, much more restrictive form of government subsidy. And there are some carriers who really play in that area. It might be interesting to take SCASDEP funds and see if one of those carriers might like to work under a SCASDEP arrangement, which is a lot less binding than the EAS. Two big players in EAS I just listed were Concur or Southern. So Concur has set up a pretty successful service between Macon and Dulles. No, Macon and BWI. And I think that's still got another 2 or 3 years to run. So that's one option. Another would be, and Mike has checked into this, we could probably apply for EAS. I think EAS in Athens-Clarke County is not a very popular word. We've been burned a few times with it. So those are two options to get to Charlotte. The next thing that Mead and Hunt suggested was point-to-point service. The problem with that is that if you pick our largest market, if memory serves me, was New York, on a daily basis, there might be only 130 people flying each way to New York. And that's split across 3 or 4 different airports. So you would have to capture, to fill a 50-seat plane, 50% of the market, which is pretty aggressive. So that could be an option, is to find, we can research who are the big regional carriers. Another option would be to try and court these two new companies, Dave Nelleman, former founder of JetBlue, Andrew Levy's a big shot who left United. Both of them are setting up airports. The buzzword is secondary airports, to serve underserved airports that are near major hubs. And we would qualify as a secondary airport. Another idea that the fellow from Allentown tossed at us is to recruit a low-cost carrier. They've had really good luck with Allegiant. I haven't checked, but I'm not sure. Allegiant may fly bigger 757s. We'd have to look at that. We can't handle that. But that's usually point-to-point, and that is to a resort area, like they said, Orlando or Fort Lauderdale. And that's usually not daily. Allentown swears by Allegiant. The gentleman said that that was the easiest airport to do business with. We've briefly talked about establishing bus service. Bus is a plane. That's not just a bus. It's where you can do your interline ticketing. And then the last thing would be to look at enhancing charter service for things like UGA conferences, students going back and forth at semester break. So without going in great detail, these were the alternatives. And the question is, on the next page, what should we be doing with these? So obviously, Mike is going to continue to pursue American service to Charlotte. His phone rings occasionally, or he's calling people who are interested. There's no way we would start service with anyone, obviously, till the market starts picking up. We could, if we're not doing well with American, see if United's interested. And then we have the alternative strategies, the 6 or 7, and the next steps might be just to research a little on each of those, and I'm happy to do a bit of that and bounce that off Grant and Mike, prioritize some and see what more should we be doing with those the rest of the year. And so the goal would be, I'll flush out, I'm going to get with Mike and Grant, we'll schedule a meeting, and we will review some potential next steps for each of those alternative carriers and see which of these we should do a little more homework. And here's something I thought about, and really we'll chat with Mike. We have what's called an Air Service Development Working Group. These were key organizations in town, profit, nonprofit, ACC Gov. We really haven't met with them formally since the award, since we applied for SCASDEP. The plan was to host a big party after we won it, and COVID happened before you could even get the invitation out. So Mike's done a good job keeping in touch with them, but maybe it might make sense to do a Zoom conference, and I'll toss that around. we might be able to just update them a little more detail where we're at. And we just hate to lose, I think, the interest of people like the guy who runs Caterpillar. We had the head of St. Mary's Hospital. So the bottom line here is if you're Mike and Grant are okay, I'll schedule a meeting and we'll just flush out some ideas for next steps on some of these alternate carrier ideas. Is that okay? Yeah.
Sounds good.
Good.
For what it's worth, Allegiant flies Airbus only, 319s, 320s.
Is that David?
Yeah.
Is it an Airbus 200? Which size Airbus? 20?
319s and 320s.
320. That's like a 757 size, right?
No.
No.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike. That's what Delta's bringing in the teams, isn't it?
717s.
717 and
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, we have had 737-800s in. Those are big airplanes.
yeah.
737-800s.
So that's the kind of stuff that we'll flush out, and I'll have my ducks in a row a bit better. The goal will be to present just a one pager to y'all that says, here's each of these alternate strategies, and here's some things. Maybe we just start contacting certain people. Let's better document the charter market here. But, just take step one or two on these and continue to see if they make sense. So that's what I had. I'm going to turn it back to Diane. Any questions on it? And again, the goal here is just to be a little more proactive. I shouldn't forget, though, that Mike, I assume you're planning on going. Is Mead and Hunt going to have their annual speed dating conference?
They usually have it in March, so we got a little bit of time.
Interesting.
I'm not quite sure what the plan is for that right now.
Okay. But I do believe there is money in the budget for Mike to go.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, we put some in there about every year. It's one of the most important ones. There's another one out there too that's really good, and I was thinking of going, but then COVID hit, and so I don't even think they had it actually this year. So I won't go to that next year either.
This is where airports like Athens get together with all the major and carriers, regional and the legacy. So I'm going to turn it back to Diane.
And I think you're on mute, Diane. There you go.
I need my map.
Yeah, you do, and I'm afraid I don't have it. Don't have it. I've been looking for it, and I can't find it. I don't know where it is.
Okay, I can try, but if I get shut off into outer space, don't blame me.
Okay. We're close to the end of the meeting anyway, so give it a shot.
Here we go again.
All right, let's see what happens. Yeah, it's not coming up.
I lost you altogether. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're all there.
We can hear you.
All right. It says I'm sharing Acrobat Reader, but you say you can't see it.
Yeah, no. Yeah, and I couldn't get it on mine either. I'll share this and then get out of it that way. There. I'll share this, get out of that, and then we'll be back to normal again.
So maybe
We can describe, I guess, the map.
Yeah.
We can send it out to everybody after the meeting as
I
well.
can show everybody like this.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that.
Well, I think everybody is familiar enough with the area we're talking about. So, I mean, I can just speak to that and then say, unless you could put the map on your shared drive, I'll send it to everybody. We already had a few months ago, we had the airport authority vote to endorse the idea of a micro or mini park on the plot of ground that's encircled by the road where there's a parking lot and then there's also a couple of groves of trees. So the airport authority did that. Blaine Williams, the airport manager, liked the idea. Leisure Services liked the idea. We met with Todd Miller in Parks Development, and so I was waiting for him to get back in touch with me and Mike But, given everything that's been happening, you didn't want to go and badger them. So eventually he did get back in touch, I guess, the week before last. And he said that, they've had so many top priority projects that they had to drop everything and deal with right away. It was understandable, the delay. They also had to finish the work at Bear Hollow, the improvements there. But he was actually very nice. He sent a whole packet of materials, including the map I will send you. Okay. And what he did was he drew up a proposal for several layers of options, if you like. The first option would be for a trail the whole way around that island, if you think of that area as an island, that green space. So a walking trail around the whole thing, that would be quite an expensive project, but still cheaper than most trails, which, in general cost $1 million a mile. This would be a simpler, narrower walking trail. Alternatively, an informal little footpath rather than a constructed trail halfway across the green space. Thirdly, possibly just a tiny little connecting path from the roadway to where we might set a picnic table, a bench or two. The main thing is he talked to the Splost people and also engineering, and that island, as you look at it, initially, if you look at it, it's nice and green, but it's actually a basin because it's actually a drainage sump. It's a basin. And it gets soggy in really wet weather. The grove of catalpa trees and pecan trees at the entrance end, the far end, furthest away from the terminal and the flight center, are worth saving and, focusing on still because they are of historical significance and we don't just take trees down in the city anymore. But they have some constraints, which I do accept. Catalpa trees have those long seed pods on them that can be pretty sharp if they hit you when they come off. And also, sticky sap in the summer. The pecan trees, as you know, drop pecans. Some people like to collect those in that grove. And then, so you've got the drainage basin, and then you've got the shedding characteristics of both of those clumps of trees. So Todd made the valid point that probably the feasible place to perhaps think about a couple of park benches and a picnic table or two would be up at the grove of oak trees on higher ground, closer, almost right near the parking lot that exists now. So, he gave us a whole lot of information, including all these specifications, which I can also send you, for the construction of different park benches, swings. If you put a park bench up, it has to have a garbage bin next to it and a dog cleanup station. So all of those things add to the cost. But he also said, at minimum, given the funding realities, because Mike doesn't have money in the budget for this. We're talking about, even though it's modest, we're talking about, at most, we're talking $125,000 to $200,000 if you wanted the full works. Well, that money's not floating around, least of all under the current circumstances. And Leisure Services doesn't have that money either. Everybody's taken a hit on their revenues. But he gave us the specs as well. For example, a park bench runs about $1,500 to $2,000 for one bench, depending on if it's metal or if it's manufactured wood, and then on a pad. Picnic table, $3,000 to $4,000. So, what I liked about what Todd did for us, and he's going to actually meet with me and Mike on site to take some more thoughts and looks at the site and whether there's any other option. But you could take it all the way to $200,000 if you could find the money, or you could bring it all the way back down to the absolute minimum where the spirit of the idea remains intact, where that's a little green space that can be connected into the green space landscape of parks in the county, in the city. And even if it were only one or two park benches, it could be a place that meets the kind of objectives that we originally talked about. A place to sit and perch, have a drink, have a sandwich, enjoy the outside, connect with the airport. If David, you and I talked about pilots coming in and always looking for a place to sit and have a snack, it could still work. So he's given us all these options from very minimal, very low cost, all the way up to something we probably will never get to. Timeline, given Todd's workload, he said he could get back to this kind of project and development in the first of the year, the new year. But he's going to meet with me and Mike probably, at some point soon, just to take another look on site, do some ground truth. Options for funding? Well, as I said, the divisions and departments are all strapped. It's not going to come from there. However, donations are not out of the question. I can tell you that we already have one donation actually pretty secured for a park bench with a plaque on it. Like you have at the Botanical Garden elsewhere, somebody might donate another bench in honor of or in memory of somebody. We have one of those already that I think we can rely on. The multi-use trail project around the whole airport property remains on the priority list of potential projects for funding under T-SPLOST. And as I said earlier, that's going to go as the final list of suggested priorities for funding to the Mayor and Commission on December 3. If that multi-use trail around the whole airport property or any of the segments in it were to be funded, the backmost segment, there's a little link to this green space already in that plan. So, the project is alive and breathing, and it has a lot of flexibility as to what we might be able to do depending on how circumstances go, what money or what donations we might be able to obtain, or what joint funding we might be able to leverage. Because remember, the multi-use trail, we're looking at T-SPLOST money connected to possibly getting funding out of the Athens in Motion budget. They've got a big budget. So I'm excited. I'm not, discouraged at all. I think that I don't care if it's even just one or two park benches. If we get to actually, have it recognized, it's already been endorsed by us, but if we get it recognized as a little park with a name in the network, we're in business. And then actually incrementally, we could add to it. Or another constraint is the fact that Mike has talked about the need for a parking deck, more parking spaces, which may knock out, a good bit of that ground. But then there's a possibility of, looking elsewhere to maybe site a park bench or a swing or a picnic table or something. So there are lots of potential ways to go. And it's not my style to let an opportunity like this drop, so I'm going to keep on it. But I think, I really appreciate the amount of time Todd did putting all this stuff together, because it's given us options to think about. So that's the update for now. Do you want me to send you the map? Keith's nodding.
Asking me or Mike, Diane?
Any of you. Mike's got the map.
I've got the map too, so yeah.
Yeah, so I can send it to the rest of you if you like.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions? Comments? Left you speechless, huh? Okay. Yeah, so, Mike, you and I are going to try and get together with Todd soon, and then we'll have the update. Keith?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, when roughly do you think we would know the outlook for the parking needs? That just going to be up in the air until commercial and all that, I guess?
We really need to get it done just as soon as we have some grant money available. And that'll probably be, that'd probably be 2-3 years down the road, possibly. We have some other things we're trying to get done. The infrastructure first on the airport, on the air side, the taxiway alpha and the ramp, and then also our second runway as well needs some attention. But with that said, we were hoping we could do it. We passed a SPLOST, about a year ago, and that was in there. But what was in there was only a parking lot, not so much a parking deck. That idea kind of came after that, and we can use some of that money, I guess, for that. But we definitely would need federal funding, and so that's what we'd have to look at and wait on that federal funding in order to fund the parking deck. I think that's really the way we need to go when we do get passenger service. the lots that we have, I don't think they're going to be sufficient in the areas we have right now. And when you get down to those trees, it is very low lying, and it is very wet there. But I think a parking deck in that area would be really nice. And then Jacob Redwine, our Holt consultant, he gave me about 3 or 4 different concepts, which are really nice. Of course, they're in the millions, so it is something that we'll have to get with the FAA and GDOT and see if we can't get some funding for it at a later date. But anyway, to answer your question, with funding needed from the FAA, it's probably going to be right now 3 or 4 years down the road. If we do get passenger service before that, it might could be stepped up a little sooner, and I'll see a need for it.
Keith, one thing Jacob did give us a quick and dirty plan B. As you enter the airport on the right, he has spec'd out how we could put a quick and dirty parking lot. It might be gravel or something, but this again was the thought that we had at least a plan for parking if we were to be able to book commercial service prior to being able to create a parking facility.
And I just forwarded Diane's email to me that had the map on it, so you can pull it up and look at it.
I think the other thing that Todd said, would be valuable is to actually get with Mike and look at any other area close to that island where it might be possible to site, a park bench or 2 or something. Mm-hmm. And particularly, if it could be moved, So, yeah, I think obviously they have to sort of move forward together, and it has to fit in around the edges, of the higher priority things like parking. But
yeah. And we do have a bench here just near the terminal. Angela brought this up too. It's a nice place to have a bench, and it's right there where the traffic is. Mm-hmm. But I know Diane really liked that area because of the trees. Mm-hmm. That was something that just drew her to that area.
Well, I think, we can look at those trees from a distance if we find another spot.
Yeah. And it might be that we have to do that, it might be to that point where, we could do something a little closer to the terminal, to the runways where they could view that as well. Yeah.
Because the one thing we've got going for us is they're not likely to have any construction on where that basin is.
Yeah. True.
True. So the trees and the green grass in the hollow are sort of secure for now.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, it's a positive project. It's another small thing, but it can serve the purpose as well. It's in the strategic plan because it actually could be a small way of actually bringing people from a walking trail onto the airport property and develop more familiarity with the facility. So, Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Diane. I know you've been working on this for several months now. Any other topics someone wants to talk about before we... Okay, no show of hands. Just before we leave, I made a note. We have a few to-dos coming out of the meeting. Diane is going to incorporate the changes into the bylaws, send it to Mike and copy me, and Mike will forward it to Josh. I owe Keith and Diane just the status of the performance measures that haven't been implemented yet, and they're all defined and everything, and we can just chat through email. I'm going to set up a meeting with Grant and Mike and I just to flush out more some next steps for these alternate strategies, and then it sounds like Diane and Mike are meeting with Todd to pick and choose from all these different plans he has for the micro park. So I'll summarize this in an email tomorrow. Well, thank you all for staying in. We need a proposal. Can someone raise a hand to adjourn? Okay, a second. Okay, so Keith proposed, Grant seconded. A show of hands, how many people vote to adjourn? It's unanimous. Meeting's over. So good. Mike, my guess is that the plan is to continue using Zoom until...
It's up to you. We have that big room.
Sorry, WebEx. I didn't mean that.
Yeah, it's up to you. We do have that big room in the terminal building. Yes. So it's up to all of you if you want to spread out or you want to stay this way.
No. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my guess is unless someone really wants to do it in person, this is probably the safest way. So
Yeah, it probably is for now.
Yeah. For now.
All right. Well, thank you, folks. I'll talk to you soon.